Veterans Affairs Canada needs to do more to overcome the barriers that slow veterans' access to services and benefits.
That's the Auditor General, Michael Ferguson. He was on our program earlier saying there's a lot of barriers, too many for veterans who rely on mental health services. He said too much red tape is tying up a complex application process. He says this means big delays for those waiting on benefits. Are vets getting the care they need? Is the government failing vets suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other mental health problems? What steps will it take now to address the problem? We'll hear from opposition MPs in a minute. But joining me now is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade and a vet himself, Erin O'Toole. Mr. O'Toole, good to have you on the program. The government has been saying it spends more money on vets than any other government. It said it served vets. Meantime, it's closed 9 Veterans Affairs offices. 2 days ago, it announced $200 million more money after lapsing $1.1 billion. What is the government's response to a report said that vets are literally not getting the mental health they need? It's just not timely.
Well, Evan, I think it's important to look back to see why did the Auditor General look at mental health for veterans. We asked him to. So our government knows that some of these things need to be measured, knows that we've been investing significant money, but it's not just about investments of money. If veterans aren't able to access care or get care as quickly as they should on the important issue of mental health. I said on your program last night, we opened the first operational stress injury clinic. Canada did. It was actually the Liberals in 2002. When I was in the military in the late 90s, was the first time I ever heard the term operational stress. So we're getting better at addressing an issue that's always been out there, but we're not getting enough quick access for some of the veterans struggling, and that's what the Auditor General said. And we asked him to look at this so we can improve it. Yeah,
but hang in there. You've been in government for 9 years. I don't know if we're going to pat anybody on the back right now. He says here, Veterans Affairs Canada is not adequately facilitating timely access to mental health services. We found Veterans Affairs Canada has not even analyzed the time it takes from a veteran's perspective to receive a disability benefit eligibility decision. These are so damning. There's no measuring of how long it takes. There's no measuring from the veteran's point of view. 9 years veterans have been telling you you're not listening. Your government has said we are. Now the Auditor General said the truth is you haven't been looking at it through their eyes. Why not?
That's part of the reason why Minister Fantino asked the AG to look at this, so we could get some metrics around it, Evan. Look at the issue you talked about, the disability front. The goal of Veterans Affairs is to have 80% of disability assessments done within 16 weeks. It didn't meet that. It took, on average, 32 weeks to hit that 80% of cases accessed. That's not acceptable, and we've got to improve it. At the same time, he looked at the rehabilitation and vocational training for people, veterans transitioning out of the forces. There was a goal there of having access to that program for 80% of veterans within 2 weeks. We did meet that, and Veterans Affairs did meet that. So he did say on some programs it's working and we're getting to veterans quick enough. Clearly on the disability front, we're not meeting the objective. That's why we asked the AG to look at it.
Right.
We've got to improve that.
Let me talk about one last thing, or a couple things. I mean, let me get some clarity, because vets have said they're getting mixed messages. They don't trust the government. A lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them. Your Prime Minister Harper said today that 94% of veterans are eligible for this disability benefit. Listen to what he said today.
In the case of the disability benefits program, 94% of applicants are being found eligible.
He says 94% of applicants are being found eligible. That's actually not true. The real quote is more than 94% of veterans eligible for mental health services get support. The truth is, it says here, of those who actually apply for it, 24% are found that they are not eligible. 3,684, 24%. They want to be eligible. They're not found eligible. Then some of them appeal that, and only another 65% of those who appeal find they can get eligibility. I guess the question is, why is the Prime Minister telling the country that 94% of vets are eligible for a benefit when clearly that's not the case?
Well, 94% of the veterans are getting the benefit, Evan. That's what he said. But the benefit is there if in mental health, and that's what the Auditor General looked at, if the injury is attributable to military service. So you got to remember, the Canadian Forces is made up of men and women from across the country. You're also going to have the same incidence of issues like depression and some of the things that arise in the general population. If your injury, just like a physical injury, so if you come back from Afghanistan with a busted up knee, that's an injury that Canadian Forces has been used to dealing with. But if you come back with an operational stress injury, whether it's PTSD or something else related to the service, you will not only get that benefit, but you'll get health care and support.
But sir, to be fair, I'm going to just quote the Auditor General. 15,385 veterans applied for the disability benefits. 3,684 were refused benefits. I don't know if you need a calculator. That ain't 94%.
Yeah, a number were turned down on the first application. What the Auditor General said, that we've got to make sure that there's less people going back the second time to have to prove eligibility. He also said in some cases the delays came from some of the delays getting GP referrals to mental health experts in provinces. That's some of the delay, but we've got to make sure that a veteran is able to have the information streamlined so that it's not cumbersome, as the Auditor General pointed out, so that they can get approved on the first application. We've got to get that first application done better.
I got opposition standing by, but you know what's going to happen. When the opposition sees this, they're going to see, we told you that you aren't servicing well enough, and there's been a lot of cuts to offices, and I know the government said no, there's more access points. Clearly vets aren't getting the service, and they're going to say to you, Mr. O'Toole, explain why since 2006, $1.1 billion of spending lapsed when any deputy minister could have spent that money to help these vets. Is there any explanation of vets out there who have been trying to get disability, trying to get mental health services? They've been waiting according to the Auditor General, and they say, couldn't that $1 billion have helped?
Evan, I'm glad you brought up the offices. I raised that again in a speech this afternoon in the House. The offices, the 9 closures of regional bricks and mortar offices were not delivering health benefits or mental health support. They were administrative points of contact that were in place from the 1950s, from a time when there was no public health care, and they needed to plug the veteran community into that care. Now, fast forward, we've got Service Canada offices in far more cities and towns. Those centres can be used for admin support, but it's critical to say veterans were not receiving care in those offices. We're opening up to 25 operational stress injury clinics to actually deliver mental health support in communities. That's the way we have to go with spending.
Well, all right. Well, let me take a break. I'll bring in opposition. We'll ask about the $1.1 billion in the AG report. Malcolm Allen, Frank Valera, they've been listening in. They're on the other side of the break. Stay with us.